One morning, my mother came to me and said, "Hurry up, get dressed, we're late." I had no idea where we were going. When we arrived at an ancient brick building and entered, I was assaulted by the odor of oranges and something septic. My ears filled with a droning echo that seemed to emanate from every wall. We walked up worn-down slate steps which had a wall of translucent wire glass that revealed another set of stairs on the other side, in some other world. On the second floor, we entered a long passageway with high ceilings and dark oak wainscoting. We walked past massive oak doors and ornate brass knobs. The floors were dingy wooden slats that creaked. When we came to the end, on the left was an open door. My mother stuck her head in, and a very old woman came to meet her. I heard them argue. It was October and school had started a month ago. I was hoping the skinny old woman would throw my mother out, but she didn't, and I was coldly asked to come in. She introduced herself as Miss Seagrave. I was immediately plunged into a torrent of anxiety. "Class, this is Jerry. He's our new classmate." I looked around and saw a frightening assemblage of strangers, all my age, all of them in constant movement, clattering and rattling, shifting little chairs, making whooping sounds, false cries, and false laughter. Some of them were looking at me and smiling. They seemed smug and suspiciously comfortable in that snake pit of undulating energy. I began to tremble and grabbed my mother's hand. This place was a hellhole. It was much more threatening and untenable than my very own home. I asked my mother not to leave me. A young, pretty assistant teacher came over and calmly ushered me to a little chair at a little table and distracted me with her kindness and pleasant eye contact. I endured the confusing time spent there and was elated when it was time to leave. I ran to my mother and I announced my firm intention that I would not go back there for any reason. My mother had no friends. Her family didn't care for her, and she was always getting into arguments or getting thrown out of stores. I never had any visitors, so you'll understand how surprised I was when the pretty young assistant teacher paid a visit to my house and wanted to speak with me. I was 5 and nobody had ever asked to speak to me. With a serious tone, she said the class orchestra was going to perform, and the reason for her visit was they needed me to be their conductor. They couldn't do it without me. I was stunned and flattered. The woman came to my house just to speak to me, to tell me that I was needed. That I was needed. I could not refuse such a high honor. A conductor, they needed me. Yes, of course I'll do it. My mother looked so happy. She was glowing. The next morning I woke up alive and energized. I was actually smiling. I got dressed and I insisted on wearing a tie. When we arrived at the classroom, I asked my mother to stay and watch the performance. Miss Seagrave raised her skinny voice and clapped her hands for attention. "Class, gather over here. I want you to take an instrument from the shelf and form a circle. Jerry will be your conductor." I saw the other kids reach into the shelves and pull out triangles, cymbals, kazoos, rattles, whistles, tambourines, noisemakers. They were an agitated mob ready for a riot. "Class, simmer down. Don't start yet. I want you to wait for Jerry." They got even more excited, blowing horns, jumping, clashing cowbells, and screaming. Lots of screaming. The pretty young assistant handed me a white painted stick. It was the baton. When Jerry waves the baton, begin the music and march around in a circle. They immediately began an uproar. I told myself not to worry. Once I lift the baton, things will change. There will be music. There was power in the baton. I lifted it and waited for the hush to begin. There was no hush. I then proceeded to wave the baton in an authoritative manner. The din elevated. The blood left my stomach. I began to see shocking auras. My head was throbbing. I felt my body tighten. That painful lump began to grow in my throat. Tears began to pool in my eyes. My breathing was shallow. My stomach tightened. I saw the pretty young assistant smiling at the cacophony. I ran to her, screaming, and lunged up. I grabbed hold of her. I gripped her hair. I bit her neck. I kicked her again and again and again and again. I was in an unstoppable rage. She screamed, "Get him off of me! Get him off of me!" My mother and Miss Seagrave ran to the emergency and had to drag me away. The classroom was quiet. I could feel their eyes on me. They were shocked. My mother carried me out of the room. On our way out, Miss Seagrave shouted, "Don't bring him back!" I couldn't stop crying. The deep sobbing echoed all the way through the hallway, down the stairs and out into the street. On our way back, my mother said that although I wasn't going to kindergarten, I had to start first grade. It was the law.
What time is it, kids?
If evil were truly incomprehensible, if evil were truly unintelligible, you would have a black hole at the heart of the world, it seems to me. You would have a sense that there's something crucial, not some little thing that we can't understand, but one of the things that affects humankind the most, that can't be explained. That's a fatal flaw in the universe, a fatal flaw in creation, and a fatal flaw in us, right? That is the sense that it's all mysterious. It could break out at any time. You know, you're looking at somebody who looks ordinary, and in fact he's a monster. And the world as a whole is a terrifying place that it's very, very hard to say yes to. And so that's the threat of the Holocaust, I think. And what Arendt did in that book was to say, look, evil's comprehensible. And if evil is something that we can understand, then actually we're not fundamentally flawed beings. We may be weak, but we're not living in original sin. We don't need a miracle to save us. We could just possibly save ourselves if we worked at it hard enough. And that means that the world is, as she says in the most beautiful passage in that book, the world is a place fit for human habitation.